I chose the wrong one. There we go. All right, so good afternoon, everyone. My name is Stacy Wixall, and I'm a Wayne County Business Council board member. I'm also the director of Macedon Public Library. And I just want to thank the Congressman for so quickly reaching out to offer this briefing on the relief legislation. So with that, I give the mic over to Congressman Katko.
Well, thank you very much, and I appreciate it. And I just wanted to take some time to reach out to you all, and I hope this finds you well and your families well. I had a very sad call today from someone I spoke to who just lost his wife to the coronavirus. So it's real, it's serious, and we have to take it serious. We can talk about that aspect of it, the healthcare aspect of it, but the economic devastation that's being derived from this as well is stunning. And that's something I'm going to talk a lot more about today. When this whole thing started breaking, I spent a tremendous amount of time speaking to hospitals in Central New York, to businesses in Central New York, big and small, to healthcare providers. And it really helped me coalesce around three things. And that was what we need more of the personal protective equipment. Everyone knows that. The ventilators and support for our hospitals, we need all that. Hospitals in this district and in a lot of districts in this country operate on very, very small margins. We have some hospitals in our district that operate on less than 10 days cash on hand, which is frightening. And that was before this crisis hit. And then you ask these hospitals to say, well, you cannot do elective surgeries anymore. And elective surgeries like knee replacements and hips and all that, that's where the hospitals make their money, and that's how they balance their budgets or try to. And when you take that financial flow out of the picture, it's very, very hard for these companies to survive. So we're mindful of that. And then we're looking about small businesses and the thousands and thousands of men and women they employ in this district. We were mindful of that, and we looked about support for families across Central New York. So this package that we had passed really falls into that. It did a really good job of addressing a lot of this. It's not perfect, but I do want to explain it to you. And then I think we just take questions from people or comments or concerns about anything, if that's all right. Is that good? Good with you?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about is this bill that was just passed today in the House expands access to capital for small and medium-sized businesses that have been crippled, provides $350 billion in comprehensive low-interest loans that can be converted to loan forgiveness to qualifying small and medium-sized businesses of less than 500 people. I can talk to more about that in a minute. Provides an additional $10 billion for the Small Business Administration's, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program. And it provides an additional $50 million for a Manufacturer Extension Partnership Program. It provides significant tax relief for employers that allows them to defer payroll tax rolls over the course of 2 years. You get a refundable tax credit for qualifying wages by employees whose operations were suspended due to the outbreak. Expands relief under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act by allowing immediate write-offs for business associated with investments in qualified investment properties, which really has to do with the storefront owner type thing. Retail outlets. It provides additional flexibility by allowing businesses to carry back net operating losses over multiple tax years and increasing deductions for business interest. And you're gonna have time to ask questions on all of these, so don't worry. It supports workers and families impacted by the pandemic. This is really important provision here. American families that are going to get $1,200 per individual and $2,400 per couple and $500 per child for anyone with an adjusted gross income of $75,000 or less, or $150,000 or less per couple. And it expands and strengthens unemployment insurance that will for people who have been laid off, and it'll be up to $600 more than the average unemployment insurance per week. And the idea of that was to give everybody, make them whole, if you will. The average salary in the United States is equivalent to unemployment insurance plus $600 a week. And we want to make sure that if somebody loses their job during this crisis for this 4-month period, they're going to have that increased benefit, which is going to be huge for them. We also did a lot with the food nutrition programs by adding $450 million. Public health officials are going to be very happy with this as well. It's going to be $100 billion in direct aid to hospitals, which is going to be huge. And I advocated for a lot, but a lot of that with, believe it or not, Senator Gillibrand and I had a lot of conversations this week, and it resulted in that. So I was very happy about that. And strengthens the state and local efforts to respond to the crisis by giving $150 billion in payments to them. So I want to talk about this loan guarantee thing. It's really important for small businesses like yours. If you have a business of 500 or less, you get a 100% loan guarantee at 4% interest rate to cover the loan. It's going to be called the Title 7A loan. So when you go to your banks and you want to mention that, and you talk to your accountants, mention that Title 7A. It's a small business administration loan, but it's going to be administered by your local banks, any bank that has the ability to administer those loans. And you take the loan out, and you can take a loan out up to 2.5 times the amount of your salary for your employees, or $10 million, whichever is less. If you take this loan out and you spend the loan proceeds on continuation of group health care or in family medical leave and paid sick leave, you put it on insurance premiums. If you put it towards employees' salaries or commissions or similar compensations, if you put it towards interest payments on a mortgage or rent or utilities or debt incurred before February 15th of 2020, you do not have to repay that portion of the loan when you put the money towards. Think about that. The loan gets converted to a grant. So I can't think of anything better for small businesses to stay afloat than this, and includes wages, of course. So the idea was keep businesses up and operating, keep people on the payroll of these businesses, even if they're not working right now, just keep having the business pay them so they're not on unemployment. Because when this crisis is over, we want to get back up and going very quickly with what's going on. So that's a very, very big, important part of this. And I'm excited about that. I really am. There's a lot of other provisions in here that we can talk about. I know there's been some discussion by the governor and some others about how this wasn't very good for New York State. I don't know how we can say that. This provision alone is going to inject over $100 billion into New York State, hopefully, or maybe, if people apply for these loans. And the unemployment insurance, which is going to be great. The $600 increase in unemployment insurance is not borne by the employer. It's borne by us, the United States government. We pay that. You don't have to pay any of that as an employer. And so I think that's important. The tax rebates I discussed, they're going to be really important. And a lot of other good things in there, but I wanted to kind of set the table with that. I really wanted to hear from you and hear what your concerns are, hear what you want to talk about, and respond as best I can to your questions. So with that, I'd say fire away.
If anyone has a question for the Congressman, if you could just let me know in the chat box and I will unmute your line. All right, since it seems like no one who's joining us on the web has a question. Amy, I am going to unmute your line in just one moment. All right, Amy, you're unmuted and you can ask your question.
Hi, Amy. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I'm having a hard time hearing you.
I don't think I have a mic.
Or if you're doing the FaceTime, if you look up in the right-hand corner, you can just press where the mic is. If it's red, just press it and it'll open you up.
Congressman, Amy's question, it seems like Amy doesn't have a microphone. Her question
Okay.
is, we are hearing that there is additional funding for FVPSA in legislation for family violence. Is that true?
For family violence, I don't know. I think at a minimum, if it's a 501c3 company, corporation, then it will have have the ability to take advantage of the small business loan I just talked about, the 7A loan. They're eligible for that under this 501c3. So at a minimum, there's that. And if there's anything more than that, we will let you know. And that's an important thing, folks. If you have questions after this, we can figure out how to get it. You just get them to your folks, and they'll be able to get them to us, and we'll definitely be able to answer them for you. But for 501c3s, they're treated the same as small businesses under the 7A provision, and quite frankly, same as a sole proprietor. So if you're a sole proprietorship, the same thing applies. And if you're a sole proprietor, you also have the same unemployment benefits that others would have on this. So.
This is Jen in the Congressman's office. The bill does include an additional $45 million for the Family Violences Prevention Services Act.
That's right.
And it also waives the match requirement for that program. And it does increase a number of other things, including the national hotline. There's a bunch of funding in there for domestic violence programs, given that we know those organizations are receiving a lot more calls right now and are also under a lot more strain because of their own workforce concerns.
That's why I hire people smarter than me, so they can answer these questions for me. I don't know the details. Thank you, Jennifer. This is Jennifer from my office.
All right, the next question is from Anthony. Anthony, I'm going to unmute you now.
Hi, Anthony.
Hello, Senator Katko. My name's Anthony Alberti. I'm the general manager of a local fitness club here in Newark, actually, within your district. And once I heard about the small business stimulus plan, I immediately emailed you on the 20th of the month, actually, in regards to the steps and what we had to do to apply for that, which I think you've pretty much answered in the conference here. And we've already reached out to a number of local banks, including the commercial bank that we use now. And they do provide small business loans there. So we're going to, move forward with that. You mentioned, the amount that we would be eligible to receive based upon, I think, the $10,000 or the salary. Once again, I don't know. Can you?
Sure. Let me. I'm glad you brought up the bank component too, because that's very important with this provision. The 7A loans are going to be administered. There's small business administration loans. They're going to be administered by local banks. So Small Business Administration we spoke to this week, they are going to, they're already in the process of writing the necessary regulations to administer this program. So they've got a lot of it underway. We don't anticipate it being much longer, maybe another week or so. Hopefully that's all it is, and maybe a little longer. And what it's going to do basically is say, you go to your bank that as a 7A lender, talk to them now. Do not wait. Talk to them now and get in the queue with your banks, telling them that you're interested and you want to get in line to do this. And then tell them what you, how much you want to take out, etc. What you're eligible to take out is 2.5 times your salary, or $10 million, whichever is less. The salary of all your employees combined. Now, if you have an employee that was laid off or employees that were furloughed and you want to bring them back, you can include them in the amount that you can get the loan for. So it's the whole idea is to try and get the employers through this tough time without having to fire everybody, and also help them pay with their rent and utilities and all these other things. Even if you are a healthy business right now, even if you haven't been adversely affected by it, or even if, quite frankly, if you've been positively affected by it, like grocery stores, for example, you can still take advantage of this loan if you want to, because the loan converts to a grant that you do not have to pay back if you spend it on the certain things I said about. Now, the details of what we have are going to be on our website at Katko rather, katko.house.gov. We update that site daily, and Jennifer, who you just saw speaking a few moments ago, is doing all the work with that. So she's going to make sure that's being updated for you. And we're getting a lot of requests in our office, and we're trying to get back to them all as quickly as possible. We are producing documents now that the bill passed today. Now that you know for certain what's going on, and you get a lot more information quicker, which I think is going to be helpful as well. So I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, thank you, Congressman. It does. Thank you.
All right, man.
Does anyone else have a question for the congressman?
While they're developing those, let me go through what else is in this bill. And if you have criticisms or comments, it doesn't have to just be a question as well, folks. For Central New York's, our local towns and villages, they're going to have access to these pots of money that are in this bill as well. $5 billion in additional community development block grants, homelessness grants for $4 billion. Transit agencies are going to get $24 billion pot of money you can access, $10 billion for airports, assistance to tribal communities, Indian Health Services, Bureau of Indian Affairs, etc., $1.7 billion. FEMA is going to be kicked up by $45 billion in their disaster fund. That's important for New York State because we were declared a disaster area statewide at my advocacy. Emergency food and shelter grants of $200 million. First responder grants of $100 million so they can get more supplies and personal protective equipment. Emergency management grants for another $100 million for local emergency management responses. Burn justice assistance grants of $850 million. These are all in addition, but we've already given to the states in our normal budgets. Economic assistance development grants of $1.5 billion for regional economic development initiatives. The manufacturing extension partnership grants for $50 million. The child nutrition or SNAP for $8.8 billion. I'm sorry, $15.8 billion, and child nutrition is $8.8 billion. Community services block grant of $1 billion. It's similar to community development, but for covers a wide range of programs. The LIHEAP program is increased by $900 million. Child care and development block grant of $3.5 billion, and the CDC funding for state and public health departments, $1.5 billion. So there's a lot of things in here helping a lot more opportunities for you to apply for more grants, and I encourage you to do so. And if you apply for grants, you should always let our office know, because if it's a federal grant or a state grant, we always put a letter of support on it. Just contact our office, and once you figure out the grant you're applying for, and we will put a letter of support on it. It's very important. It sometimes helps move it along. So.
Congressman, I have a question from someone on an iPhone who's wondering what might be available for businesses who have over 500 employees.
Okay, Jennifer, you want to take that? There's quite a bit.
All right, I'm unmuted, I think, yeah. So if you have more than 500 employees and you're in the food or hospitality industry, there are exceptions if you have multiple locations. So each of your locations, if your company has less than 500 million in gross receipts, each of your locations can apply for those loans and grants independently, so long as each of those locations does not have 500 employees. So that's the exception for food and hospitality businesses with 500 or more employees.
Okay, if you're over 500 employees, I think there's some provisions for the payroll. If I'm not mistaken, maybe I'm.
That's the payroll protection loan. So you're able to get that on an individual location. So if you have multiple retail store locations, your individual store locations can qualify for that payroll protection loan.
Right, but the question, I think, if you're above 500 employees and you don't qualify for that, there is some other things. You can defer payroll tax, I believe, right? Oh. The payroll tax payments over the course of 2 years, and you can do that. It allows you to provide a refundable tax credit for qualifying wages paid by employers whose operations were suspended or whose gross receipts declined by more than 50% due to the virus. It expands relief under the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act by allowing immediate write-offs for costs associated with investments in qualified improvement properties. That's usually like the storefront retails. And it provides additional flexibility by allowing businesses to carry back net operating losses over multiple tax years and increasing deductions for business interests. So even if you're a big corporation or a big company, you're going to have significant help with this as well through some of these provisions.
Have a question from Jonathan Taylor.
Good afternoon, Congressman. Thank
Jonathan,
you
how
for
are
having
you?
this. Good, how are you?
Good, buddy.
I'm the mayor in the village of Newark, and I know that early on in the discussions, and I believe it ended up this way, there wasn't any help for municipalities under 500,000 residents. And we're going to face some significant challenges. We're looking at a significant loss in sales tax revenue. Our board has already began the discussions about how do we try to scale back our budget, which we're really on a razor thin margin now, because we're expecting it's going to be obviously challenging times for people. And we talk about the need to raise taxes or water sewer rates or anything at this time is going to be really hard to swallow. So I'm wondering about, is there any aid for local municipalities? At this time, we have probably 65% of our workforce is at home. Only essential personnel, including our police department and our highway department, water and sewer, are working right now. So essentially, we're paying all these people to sit at home, and there's going to come a time when we need them to come back. There's going to be a significant amount of work to do, and it's going to be really hard for us to make up those margins without any help, I believe.
Yeah, and so I mean, it's a misnomer to say that you're not going to get anything out of it. I know that's been put out by the associations and what have you. What there's a huge amount of money. Jennifer, what's the exact amount? It was 150 billion.
There's
no?
150 billion in that.
Okay. All right, so it's 150 billion dollars that is going to go to states, cities, states and cities of more than 500,000 get direct payments from the feds, proportional. If you are less than a 500,000 person city or town, hamlet, whatever, which obviously you are, and most of them are in upstate New York, you still have opportunity to get that money. You just have to go through the state to get it. Now, I know it's a chore in New York State, but don't let New York State tell you that you're not eligible for that money. You're eligible for that money. You have to go advocate for it. So that's number one. So the money is there. And number two, this is not the last bill we're going to do. And we are very mindful of the impact on counties and towns and villages and smaller communities. And this money that we're sending to the states, don't let them tell you that it's not part of it. But also, I think that I'm hopeful that we're going to have another package coming forward to help the municipalities, which we know are really hurting from this as well. So the money's there now for you in this bill, and there's hopefully more coming because we're mindful of it. And the more information you can get to us about how your economics are hurting, we're going to do that with everybody in all the towns and villages. The more we can make the case for you, very similar to what we did with the towns and villages. Very similar to what we did with the hospitals. We knew how bad shape they were in, and we advocated for them, and we got a lot of help for them in this bill. And we're going to do the same for you all.
No, I really appreciate that because we're definitely, not even needed to say, but we're hitting some really hard times now, and this is going to be a challenge.
Be mindful of the fact that the governor has a big budget he's trying to plug gaps on, a budget gap, and he shouldn't do it on the backs of you all. So you should advocate for your piece of the pie.
Well, thank you.
You're welcome.
Congressman, I have another question from Steve Hessler. His question has to do with FMLA, federal employment program, state unemployment, and blending. What can you talk about that has to do with those items?
Well, Jennifer, you might talk more about that. You're a little more of an expert on that than me.
Yeah, just the general unemployment provisions.
And the Family
I
Medical
think
Leave
so.
Act.
It's more of a listing of those topics. So I think any information you might have on those areas, do you want me to repeat them?
That's okay. So the previous bill we passed, the second phase, that included a lot of the paid leave provisions, which fell under FMLA. We've got references and resources on our website that people can go to for that. There's a small business tab that lists out all of those paid leave requirements and where you can find more information on that. For the unemployment insurance in the current bill that we just passed, like the Congressman mentioned, it's an extension and an expansion of current benefits. None of those additional fees or none of the strain will be placed on businesses. So it extends unemployment insurance benefits to people for 4 months as opposed to the current length. And then it adds on an additional $600 a week on top of the max weekly benefit that currently exists. Again, that extra $600 is not going to fall on the businesses. The federal government's going to pay for all of that. But that is meant to make the average worker, allow them to have about 100% of their take-home pay. So there is some slight concern that for lower income workers, they would be making more on this new unemployment formula, and that is possible in the short term. But the reason this was done is to get these benefits out immediately. They didn't want to have to impact every state's administrative unemployment program. So this is just a federal across the board, an additional $600 a week benefit. But again, that should not be impacting employers because they will not be footing the bill for that.
Right.
So if there's anyone else who has a question, please just let us know. Either type it in the chat, or if you know how to raise your hand, you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you. Oh, I think that must be it for today then.
Okay, well, I hope I didn't put you all to sleep. Before we wrap up, I just wanted to say thank you very much for all you are doing in your communities. And your 3D printer, is it still in your library?
Yeah, it's
All
still
right.
going. It's
All
kind of
right, I gotta-
lonely right now.
I got to get back up there and see you all again. So I'll get
Yeah.
back up to see you soon. I
Yeah.
got to get some more books I get out of your library. It's awesome.
That's right.
But listen, folks, this is the very trying times, very. And we understand that. This is not the end. I suspect that there's going to be more coming. We are very mindful of what you're up against. We can't help you unless you tell us what you're up against. We need to have your information. Please let us know, and we will continue to advocate for you, like we did for the hospitals, like we did for small businesses, and we did for families and individuals. So this is a tough road. We don't know where it's going to end or when it's going to end. It's the toughest crisis, I think, from a financial standpoint, at least since the Great Depression. And the good thing is, before this started, our economy was in very solid shape. So the chances that we can recover quickly from this are much greater than it was in 2008, for example. And that's why we pump so much money into small businesses and into governments and what have you in this bill. More is coming. We understand what we need to do. Please give us your input. And I'll leave you with this. I spoke to someone today who lost his wife to the virus. He had to make the awful decision to turn off her machine on Monday. And it's terrible. So it's real and it's serious. And it's probably going to get a little tougher before it gets better. I think we need to hunker down, take things serious, take the precautions. My hands have been washed so many times, they're like raw, but do it. And please do the social distancing. It's hard. I'm a very social person, but it's hard for me. But if you have any questions or concerns, call us. We have a ton of information in our website at katko.house.gov. I encourage you to go there. It's just a chock full of information. And keep the information coming, folks, okay? And please take care of yourselves and your families, and God bless.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Bye, guys.
Bye.
Thanks, Jennifer.